Good morning. It's Wednesday for Norma Talks, and it's 9 o'clock. And this is a different Norma Talks because I'm going to read a story I've written. It's around a metaphysical Christmas story, a metaphysical perception of life and the birth and the life of Jesus. Now, in 2005, I wrote my first metaphysical Christmas story. Others followed. This year, I have refurbished my 2018 Christmas story. Today, you will hear some information regarding the birth, plus some quotes from the Bible, plus my creative thoughts and interpretations. I hope you will enjoy listening to my Metaphysical Christmas, a short story of Jesus's birth and life, along with my perceptions and comments. For over 2,000 years, we have been taught how a boy child whose name became Jesus was born in a manger in a stable in the town of Bethlehem. His parents, Mary and Joseph, had to return to Bethlehem for a census. When they arrived, there were no rooms available. Finally, one innkeeper, seeing Mary was very pregnant, offered them a place in the stable. And, as the story goes, it was there among the animals in a manger that Jesus was born. There is a theory that Jesus may have been born a couple of miles outside of Bethlehem and was actually born in the company of shepherds. Shepherds were not high on the social scale, but a couple of miles outside of Bethlehem, there was a special watchtower called the Migdal Eder, which means the Tower of the Flock. It is thought that sheep born there were used as sacrificial animals in the Jewish temple in nearby Jerusalem. So they were very special, and the shepherds who worked there were highly thought of. According to some sources, the lambs at Migdal Eder had their health checked by resting them in a manger and were even wrapped in swaddling clothes to show they were special. Interestingly, one ancient prophecy from the Bible said that the Jewish Messiah would come to the Tower of the Flock. Even though the birth of Jesus is today celebrated on December 25th, there has been a lot of conjecture about the actual date of Jesus's birth. Many scholars believe that it is more than likely during Passover, as people would naturally be returning to their home villages and towns to celebrate Passover with their families. Plus, it is thought the Romans would more likely use this time to take a census. Using the date December 25th to celebrate Jesus' birth came about in 336 AD, when the Roman Emperor Constantine recently converted to Christianity. He declared December 25th as Jesus' birth date. Interestingly, the date happened to coincide with a Roman holiday to celebrate the Roman deity Mithras. By the way, Mithras has a very similar background as Jesus does. When the date December 25th was made official by Pope Julius a few years later. Since then, the date December 25th became known as Jesus' birthday, Christmas. And now my own creative story begins in a town far away called Bethlehem. Yusuf was shivering. The cold wind was coming up the hill, but it was his job to watch the sheep. And as the youngest boy with 5 older brothers, he was chosen to watch the sheep this evening, while the other brothers were inside in the warm. He huddled into his woolen coat, and as he often did, wondered what his life was going to be. Always the youngest, always doing the duties no one else wanted. Was he going to be a shepherd boy forever? He truly did not know. Excuse me for this. I'm just going to have a little sup here. I'm trying to be working to get my voice okay. It was a cold night. The sky was dark, and he could not see the stars. He could see the lights down in the village, and he had heard that the village Bethlehem was cramped packed with people. who had returned for the Roman census. He thought about how far many of the people had traveled to be there and wondered why the Romans made people return to the home of their town of their birth in order to be counted. Yusuf's family did not have to travel. They lived on this hill, tending their sheep for many generations, and did not bother themselves with what else was going on. Except Yusuf was always curious about the people who came and went buying meat and cheese. But of course, being the youngest, he did not get to speak to them. He could only imagine where they came from and the adventures they must have. Yusuf found himself drifting off to sleep, something he was not supposed to do, and he shook his head awake, checking on the sheep. He breathed a sigh of relief. Oh, good, they were all there. When he noticed there was a bright light in the sky, a very bright light. All of a sudden, he was frightened. What was this light? What did it mean? He wanted to run away and hide, yet his job was to look after the sheep. His father would be very angry if he left them and hid. So he stayed where he was. As the light got brighter and brighter, Yusuf looked around and noticed that the other shepherds on the hill were also looking up into the sky at this bright light descending upon them. Then the light turned into an angel, and light shone all around it. Yusuf huddled down, making himself even smaller. He looked around, noticed all the other shepherds were terrified, and they all moved closer together for comfort and strength. No one had ever seen anything like this, and fear was running through their veins. Then the words, Luke 2:8-14. Do not be afraid. I bring you good news of great joy that will be for all the people. Today, in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is Christ the Lord. This will be a sign to you. Go, and you will find a baby wrapped in swaddling clothes and lying in a manger. As they were all digesting these words, the sky became filled with more angels, praising God, saying, Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace to men on whom his favor rests. The shepherds were now even more afraid, and fear had some of them keeping on watching their sheep like nothing had happened. The shepherds had been terrified when one angel appeared, and especially when the whole sky lit up with angels singing. Who would not be? It was something out of their realm of comprehension. When we encounter something which is not in our usual experience, we have a choice to expand our awareness, consciousness, to embrace and decide what we want to do with this information before us, or shrink and hide and not deal with the situation. This is what most shepherds did. But 3, including Yusuf, spoke among themselves and decided, let's go down to Bethlehem and see what this birth is about, while the rest kept an eye on their sheep. All through our lives, we have decision points which only in retrospect do we see how our life paths changed or deviated from a path we were on. Often our decisions were based on fear of the unknown. Fear puts our minds into a freeze place, a place where it does not want to accept what is before us. Therefore, we will respond and react with our tried and true beliefs, thoughts, and actions. We can put our head in the sand like some of the shepherds who did not want to accept the angels before them or hear the words which were spoken. Or we can be like the shepherds who went and found the birth. We can be courageous and willing to adjust to new ideas and concepts, to assimilate what before was not known, and then decide on our course of action. What Yusuf did not know on that night, the star which appeared in the sky above Bethlehem, was seen by many, including 3 wise men said to come from the east, accepted as astrologers and learned men looking to find the birth of the new King of the Jews. They had followed the star, the light, for many months before arriving in Bethlehem. There are several theories of what created this bright light, the star that the three wise men followed. But one which I particularly like is a conjunction between Jupiter and Saturn in Pisces in 7 BC. The three wise men followed the light until it appeared to come to a halt over Bethlehem. This halt would have been created by the planets beginning to retrograde, seemingly to stand still. If this conjecture is true, it means that Jesus was possibly born in 7 BC. This would fit because King Herod was alive when the wise men visited him. These three wise men, because of their questioning of people about the birth of a new king of the Jews, had come to the attention of King Herod in Jerusalem. King Herod, the current king of the Jews, had them brought before him, and they told him their story, that they had been following a strange star in the sky for many months, and the star was announcing the birth of a great teacher, a king. King Herod gave his approval for them to keep on seeking, asking them to find the baby and then report back to him. When they came to Bethlehem, they followed the light and found the baby, who was to become known as Jesus. They also brought gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. When it came time for the wise men to leave and return to their homelands, they had a dream in which they were instructed not to return to King Herod, but to go home another way, and this they did. In the meantime, hang on a sec here. Excuse me. In the meantime, the shepherds returned to watch their sheep, and they spread the word of the birth of a Messiah. And more people began to celebrate this birth, a birth in a stable where three wise men and shepherds attended. Although the wise men did not go back to visit King Herod, he now knew of the prediction of a new king being born, and gave an edict in which every boy child under the age of 2 was to be killed. Jesus was spared, as soon after his birth, an angel appeared to Joseph in a dream, and he was instructed to go to Egypt. Joseph followed the advice of the dream, which meant that Mary, Joseph, and baby were in Egypt when King Herod carried out his threat. The number 3 is a creative number and appears often within the symbology of Christ's story. Without 3 energies coming together, we would not be here. We are formed by an egg, a sperm, and a soul. Without these 3 aspects, we would not be alive. Then, when Jesus was 3, Joseph had another dream wherein the angel told him to return to Israel. This he did, settling in Nazareth, working as a carpenter. Jesus thereby grew up in the city of Nazareth and became a carpenter like his father Joseph. Many years ago, I walked the streets of Nazareth, which are still set out in the same pattern as they were over 2,000 years ago. For over 2,000 years, Jesus' birth story has been told. The night when Jesus was born also represented the beginning of a 2,000-year-old cycle, the Piscean age, Pisces, a water sign. And now we are in another 2,000-year cycle, the Aquarian age, an air sign. During the Piscean age, the utilization of water was explored. Now in the age of Aquarius, airways, think of the internet, is being explored. People often forget Jesus lived and died a Jew. He followed the Jewish ceremonies. He did that which is required by his religion. In Jewish religion, when a child is 13, he has his bar mitzvah and is welcomed into the world as a man. Thereafter, he can go and argue in the synagogue the meaning of the Torah, the word of God. When he was 12, it is said Jesus was discovered arguing in the synagogue with learned rabbis. When he turned 30, Jesus' whole life changed. When we turn 30, we become conscious, aware, and begin to mature in a different way than we did in our teens and 20s. We enter a 10th cycle of 3. In effect, a new beginning, a new awareness of the creative force. It is written that Jesus was traveling from Galilee to Jordan when he encountered his cousin John. In metaphysical circles, it is accepted that John, son of Mary's sister Elizabeth, and Jesus were close cousins. John definitely had spent time with the Essenes, an ascetic group, and he was preaching and baptizing people in the River Jordan. Jesus went to meet him and there was baptized. In Matthew 3:16-17, it says the following: And Jesus, when he was baptized, went up straightway out of the water, and lo, the heavens were opened unto him. And he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and lightning upon him. And lo, a voice from heaven saying, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Again, a number of years ago, when I was on a spiritual journey around Israel, we went to the River Jordan. And as I was already a minister at that time, the leader of the group asked me to help her to do baptisms in the River Jordan. And somewhere I have a certificate saying this, but I was the second to last because the leader, I had to do her dipping, and she was in. And I remembered the story of the dove coming down, and I wanted a bird. I wanted some significance. Now, there are very few birds that I found or saw in Israel at all, and I've done 2 visits there many years ago. Now, as I was being laid down into the water was about waist high, and we were being, I was laid down. I looked up, and 2 birds flew across. Now, I hadn't really seen a bird when we've been traveling all over. I hadn't seen a bird, and these birds formed a particular pattern. Every now and again, when I'm driving along or I'm looking out at the sky, 2 birds will fly by in that pattern. And that always is a sign to me, just a remembering sign. So, yes, I've been baptized in the River Jordan with a group of metaphysical people. Anyway, immediately after his baptism, Jesus went out into the desert for 40 days and 40 nights, just as Moses had done before him. And that often is not recognized that Moses also did this. The Bible states he battled with the devil being those aspects of ourselves which is not connected to the light. The light representing the universal love source. He faced his temptations and he overcame them, drawing on his connection to the light, which he called his Father, and he grew in his own personal power. The significance of time period of 40 days is important. It is the length of time it takes to change a pattern of thinking and reaction. You can change your pattern of thinking in 6 weeks, 42 days. By resisting this inner temptations, Jesus reemerged as a transformed person, setting the pattern for us to follow. It was after Jesus reemerged from the desert, stories about the miracles he was performing began to circulate. His first miracle occurred shortly after coming out of the desert. Jesus attends a wedding where the wine runs out. His mother comes to him and asks him to make more wine. And though he replies, John 2:4, mine hour is not yet come, he does it anyway, and the first miracle occurs. I can just imagine Jesus's family knew he was a special person, and that his mother comes to him and says, the wine has run out. And he says, no, I'm not ready. And then his mother requests again, please, Jesus. Now, how many times she requested, pleaded, we do not know. But finally, he did as she requested and turned the water into wine. From this point on, Jesus travels and gathers his 12 disciples around him. When we join together, energy is increased. This is one reason community is so important, to have a group who supports similar ideas and ideals, a group who are unconditional in their love and therefore can accept and support each other and feel supported in their journey. 12 is the higher number of 3. The creative love force and also the 4th cycle of 3 is there for grounded into reality. By having 12 disciples, it represents the creative expression into the world. It was when the 12 disciples were in place that Jesus' teachings and healing became more widespread and known. His message consistently was forgiveness heals, to love God, to love one another, and to know that the kingdom is within. It is important to remember Jesus came at a time of great unrest in his country. Rome ruled. Jesus repeatedly said that his Father loved everyone, which meant Gentile as well as Jew. Jesus lived that example and was criticized for it. He loved, which is total acceptance and forgiveness, and he did not discriminate. You could be a beggar or leopard, Gentile or Jew, no matter. He would love and heal. Through his healings, through forgiveness, he demonstrated we are all worth. During his travels, Jesus spoke and healed many. One story which I have always remembered is the story where Jesus came upon 10 lepers and he heals them. After they were healed, they all ran off to do whatever. Then one comes back and said, "Thank you." Symbolically, the numbers are important. 9 is the number of completion, and 1 the number of beginning and newness. And therefore, 9 were of the old, the forgetful, the non-grateful, the old way, and 1 represents the new, the gratitude which Jesus constantly taught. Today, we say thank you when receiving anything from someone. Whenever Jesus spoke, he also gave the message, forgive and remember, one God, one Spirit, and in John 13:34, it is written, a new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another as I have loved you. To live up to the one commandment he left, we need to have accepted the universal love within ourselves. Often those of us on the path of spiritual enlightenment will speak about acceptance. We say how we are lights and we need to allow our inner light to shine. But do we put it into practice day by day, year long? Do we let go of our judgments, our feelings of resentments, and allow ourselves to come from the heart and be happy and accepting and allow our lights to shine? We all have access to the light of love inside. We do have a power to send love to others. We can open our hearts and support others on their journey. We just need to be open to receive the love. Often it is harder to receive than to give. This is why to know you are worthy and loved is important. How much right now do we have to accept and adjust to? On so many levels, our society is changing. Our planet is changing. Our political systems are changing. Everything is changing. And we have the option to grow, adapt, and change with it, or let fear stop us. We have a choice, adapt to the changes. We can live in fear and reaction, or we can accept change. We can let go of beliefs, attitudes, and judgments which no longer apply or work. We can also choose to live in faith and trust, to live the one commandment which was given to us by the child who was born in Bethlehem, which was to love one another. This was what the birth of the Christ was about. Love. To truly love another, you need to love yourself, and that is the journey. The inner journey to connect to the one power, the one source, the source of love. Today, we rejoice in being alive, knowing the universal love force loves you unconditionally. When Jesus was 33, he was crucified for these beliefs, which were contrary to the norm. But that is another story for another day. I thank you for listening to my Metaphysical Christmas Story, written in 2018 and readapted for 2023. And I wish you and yours the most wonderful, merry 2023 Christmas and a happy, prosperous 2024. I just want to say that I won't be having any more shows until January the 3rd when I come back with, oh, what have I got written down here? Because might forget. With the effective goal setting, Norma Talks opens up on the first Wednesday, because every other day that I would be doing something is a specific holiday. So you may get a note from me, but other than that, what you will see and find is that you have a wonderful Christmas holiday period time. Put it to good use. Connect with people you haven't connected with for a while. Know that the love that you have inside you can reach out to others, so that you enjoy this change that's happening, this adapting, this whole element of what we're having to do. I give thanks for every moment that I'm able to be here and speak to you. And even though I have this voice problem because of the treatments I'm getting, I still want to wish you the very, very best for this holiday season. God bless.